All right, so we are looking at externalities. Okay, externalities. Basically, I think the introductory lecture we said externality is one cause of market failure. Okay, and we all know what market failure is when the free market system fails to efficiently allocate resources. Okay, if they are unable to produce the optimal quantity that the society deems fit. So we said it has several causes: public goods, externalities, monopoly power, information asymmetry, and all that. So today we'll look at one aspect called the externality. So we'll look at what it really is, the theory of externality, and then how to solve externalities. We call it how to internalize externalities. We'll see how the private sector tries to solve the issues of negative externalities and how the public sector also tries to do that. So that's what we'll be looking at today. All right, so let's look at what the externality theory is. We all know what market failure is. Okay, when the market doesn't efficiently allocate the resources to the production of goods and services. Now, we have externality, or basically when we talk about externality, we are talking about the effect. And talking about effect, it can either be positive or it can be negative. Okay, so we are talking about the effect that an economic activity has on a third party. Okay, and then this effect can be caused by a consumer, can be caused by a producer, which means that during the production process, we can have externalities. During the consumption process too, we can have externalities, and they can be positive or negative. Now, whenever something happens during these two processes, it has to be transmitted by the market forces. Okay. Now, whenever there are changes in market incentives, it should transmit into the price and then the quantity that is produced in the market. So whenever you have an economic activity by a particular agent, being a producer or a consumer, and it affects a third party without the market forces transmitting this effect, that is where we have externality. Okay, so we should bear that in mind. If there's an activity and then the effect of that activity goes through the market, and then the effect is seen in the equilibrium price and quantity, then that is not an externality. Okay, it shouldn't be transmitted by the market forces. As soon as it is transmitted by the market forces, it ceases to be an externality. So that is the main requirement for an economic activity to have an externality. Okay, let me give you an example, which is not an externality. Assuming I sell economic books at the economic department. As I started, there were only 200 students at the department. So we're buying with a particular price, at a particular efficient quantity and then price. Then there was an increase in the intake of students at the department. And as a result, I had to print more books. Okay, because assuming the number increased to 500, I had to print more books to see that I am producing, I'm still engaging the production process. So is this production process having an externality? One, you might think that because of the increase in the number of students, I am benefiting. So if you don't take your time, you say that's a positive externality from my production process. Or those who were even there before the increase, they are going to be affected by the increase in price. And that is a reduction in their welfare. We might think that is a negative externality. But then, because of the increase in the number of students, there's going to be an increase in demand. And as a result, there's going to be an increase in the price of the book. So whatever is happening, the effect of my production process now is being transmitted by the market forces. It is being seen in the price of the good. There's now an increase in price. And as a result, it's also going to affect the quantity of the books that I print. So that is not an example of an externality, because the effect of my production is being transmitted by the market forces. Okay. But let's look at some examples of externalities. A smoker, okay, assuming you are in a room, your roommates are there, and you are smoking. When you smoke and then you puff off the smoke, those are around you will have to also inhale whatever it is you are pushing out. We call it secondhand smoking. That's a negative externality, okay, because there it is not going to affect the third party inhaling whatever you are pushing out. It's not going to affect the price of the cigarette, okay, or the quantity. So that is an example of an externality. So let's look at the examples here too. We have a firm polluting a river that is used for recreation. The person is actually putting waste materials into the river, and he's not paying for it. And because he's not paying anything for it, it doesn't affect the pricing policy and then the quantity that the firm is going to produce. Okay, so the externality will exist when someone is having a spillover effect of an economic activity. And if it's negative, the person causing it was supposed to pay for that negative externality or that damage, but they don't. And then if it's a positive externality to those enjoying the spillover effect, were supposed to pay, compensate the person causing it, but then they don't. That is why we call it externality, and it's a source of market failure. One positive externality is like you have a garden, okay? You have a garden maybe in front of your house, and it's very nice. When people are passing by, they just enjoy the scene and they are happy and all that. See that they are enjoying something that they are not paying for. So efficiently, they were supposed to pay you because they are enjoying what you produced. Okay, so those are examples of externalities. I hope you guys understand it. Let's look at the nature of externalities. Okay. Now, we actually have externality because we don't at times have defined property rights. Okay, you are doing your mining and you are just putting your waste materials into the river. You see that the river is a common resource. It's for the entire society. No one actually owns the river. There's no defined property right. That is why you can just go there and just put whatever you want into the river, and then you cause damage to the entire society. If the river was actually for someone, you couldn't have done that. Even if you'll be able to do that, you have to pay the person. So we normally have, we basically have externality because of the lack of inadequate property rights. Okay, if you really own a particular thing, there's no way you can allow someone to just come and destroy. You see that the issue is that when something has common ownership, no one is ready to fight for that thing. But if the thing is your own, personally, individually, you will always stand up and then fight for that thing. So when we have common resources with common ownership, people tend to abuse it. They just use it anyhow. There's a term called tragedy of the commons. Okay, people just abuse the things. But if the thing is yours, we never allow anyone to abuse it. Okay, so that is one thing about the nature of externalities. And also, as we have seen, externalities are not caused only by firms. Like, that's a misconception. People think externalities are just caused by firms, but consumers also do cause externality. So we have production and then consumption externality. Okay, so that is another thing that we also have to know. And also it can either be positive or it can also be negative. Okay, it can be positive, it can also be negative. So those are some of the things about externality. So let's start with negative externalities. Let's begin with negative production externality. So when do we have a negative production externality? When the production process engaged by a firm, okay, reduces the well-being or the welfare of others who are not compensated by the firm. So the firm is engaged in an economic activity, and whatever it is that he's doing is reducing the welfare of others. And as he was supposed to pay those people who are taking that cost, he doesn't do that. Okay, so when it happens like that, we have negative production externality. If you take the construction firm, they are constructing roads, they are polluting the air. Okay, it's a cost to those living around the road, but then they don't compensate those people. So that's an example of a negative production externality. So before we look at the analysis, these are some terms that we have to understand. See that under competitive markets, firms will charge prices, or goods and services are traded at prices where marginal costs are exactly equal to the marginal benefit of the good. Okay, the private marginal cost is the personal cost that the firm incurs as it tries to increase production by 1 unit. Okay, so it's just like the normal marginal cost that we know. We are just adding private just to show that it's just a cost to the firm, only the firm. Okay, so we call it the private marginal cost. And then we have marginal damage. Okay, the marginal damage is the negative externality, whatever cost that the third party incurs as a result of the production process. Of course, those people will not be compensated for this cost. We call it the marginal damage. Now, to the society, the total cost of the production process is not just the private marginal cost. To the firm, the only cost he bears and considers in the pricing policy is just the private marginal cost. Whatever marginal damage that the people are facing, he doesn't care at all. But to the entire society, our social marginal cost is going to be the private marginal cost that the firm is facing, and then the marginal damage that is being faced by the third party. Okay, so if you take the mining industry as an example, the cost of their inputs will be seen as their private marginal cost. But then we don't end there. They are polluting the water. So that pollution there is the marginal damage, and it's also a cost to the society. Okay, so let's keep these things in mind. We add the marginal damage and then the private marginal cost to get the social marginal cost. We'll be using a lot of diagrams here, but they are very easy to understand. Okay, so in your own time, you try to put your hands to them. Don't just look at them and assume you can do them. Now, we want to look at the graphical analysis of negative production externality. We'll start from the normal competitive market equilibrium. Then we introduce the negative externality. So please follow the curves. This is the demand curve. Okay, this is the demand curve. Now, what we are doing, we are concerned about the entire society, not just the private cost and then the private benefits. Okay, the firm is producing. What benefits will individuals have from the good? That is, it is represented by our demand curve. It gives us the marginal benefit, and that is going to be the social benefit as well. So the demand curve will represent the private marginal benefit, which is exactly the same as the social marginal benefit. Though the person is causing a negative externality, we are still enjoying the good or service that the person is producing without taking anything away from it. And then this line here, the supply curve, is the firm's private marginal cost. Okay, private marginal cost. So left to the market alone, this firm will produce at point A, produce Q1 and charge a price of what? P1. So this is what the market is going to produce. Okay, this is going to be the equilibrium, because the market wouldn't add the marginal damage, the negative externality. But to the entire society, the cost that this production process is causing is not only the private marginal cost, but then we have to add the marginal damage as well. So if you add the marginal damage to the private marginal cost, you see that the social cost there is going to be higher than the private cost. So the cost line is going to shift upwards. So the red line that we will see here is the social marginal cost, which is the summation of the private marginal cost and then the marginal damage. So The distance between the social marginal cost and the private marginal cost is the marginal damage. Okay, so instead of producing at point A, the society will prefer point C, because this will be the optimum equilibrium point. I mean, from the perspective of the entire society. So we'll produce at point C. So if we produce at point C, what is happening here? We have to produce Q2, which is lower than what the market is going to produce. So what is the effect here when we have a negative externality? The firms tend to overproduce. Whenever they produce negative externalities, they overproduce. Okay, because you are causing damage to the society will prefer you producing less, so that if it's the river that you are polluting, I mean, there's going to be some reduction in that. Okay, so whenever you have a negative production externality, this is what happens. The market will tend to overproduce. They produce Q1, but the society will rather prefer producing Q2, something lower than what the market is going to produce. So we call this triangle here the deadweight loss. Okay, the deadweight loss. You are producing more than what we have to produce. So this is a total loss to the entire society. We were producing Q1, now we have to produce Q2. So this side is just going away. It's not going to the firm. It is not going to those who are consuming the good as well. So we call it deadweight loss. Okay, I hope you guys understand. Please, do we understand? Hello.
Hello. So please can you comment? I was offline. My network was not available.
Please, who was talking? I didn't even see the person talking, which means your network is still not good. Are you when there are quite a number of curves on this. When I explain the next one, I'm sure understanding should come. So that is the effect of negative production externality. The firms will tend to overproduce, which means that is either from the perspective of the society, they are supposed to produce less, but then they are producing more. That is why the market is failing. They are not efficiently allocating the resources. They are producing more than what the society needs. So it becomes a cost to the entire society. Now let's look at negative consumption externalities. Sorry. For a negative consumption externality, this is going to happen when during the consumption process of one person, there's a reduction in the well-being and the welfare of a third party. Okay, and then the first individual does not compensate the second person that is being harmed. Okay, so if you are consuming something like this smoking example, when you are smoking in your room and your roommates are there, you are affecting them negatively. You are supposed to pay them. You don't pay them. So if you don't pay them, then that is where we have negative consumption externality. Okay. So these ones too, before we do the graphical analysis, we need these ones. Private marginal benefit. Okay. When an individual consumes a commodity, okay, the benefit that the person gets for consuming an extra unit is what we call the private marginal benefit. So if you are smoking, the private marginal benefit of the smoking is for only you. Okay, just you. It's private. It's a private something. Okay, but then the social marginal benefit is the benefit that the individual who is taking it, who is actually consuming the good, is enjoying, and then whatever benefit that another person is also enjoying. But here, because we are talking about a negative consumption externality, if you take two people like this roommates, roommate one is consuming cigarette and is getting a particular benefit. That's the private marginal benefit. But to the second person, it is a cost to him. Okay, so if you want the whole benefit of smoking in the room, it's going to be the benefit that the first person who is smoking it is getting minus the cost that the second person is incurring. Okay, that's why we are saying that the social marginal benefit is going to be what the difference between the private marginal benefit and then the marginal damage. That is the cost that roommate 2 is incurring because of the smoking by roommate 1. Okay, so these are what we need: private marginal benefit and then social marginal benefit. Private is to the person consuming, the social marginal benefit is to the entire society. That is the benefit that the private person is getting minus the damage that that consumer is causing the entire society. So let's look at how that one works. Now, if you are an individual, you keep on buying until your marginal benefit is equal to your marginal cost. And that is the competitive equilibrium where demand is equal to supply, right? Now, this is your private marginal benefit. That's your demand curve. And then this is the private, let's take this as the private marginal cost. Okay, here, the private marginal cost coincides with the society's or the social marginal cost. Okay, now per production, we are not getting any negative externality here. It's just consumption that we are dealing with. So there's no change in the cost. There is another way that we can do this analysis where we rather add the marginal damage to the private marginal cost, because the damage to the society is also a cost that is being produced by the good. But let's just stick to what we have here. So we are taking the social marginal benefit to be the same as the private marginal benefit. The reason why we need the socials is that in the eyes of a private economic agent, you equate private marginal cost to private marginal benefit. But in the eyes of the entire society, we equate social marginal cost to social marginal benefit. Okay. So if PMC is equal to SMC, then this is the cost that the entire society is facing. This is the private marginal benefit. So this individual would have consumed Q1 under competitive conditions. The market will cause this person to consume Q1. Okay, so assuming the roommate one who is smoking a cigarette, you would like to consume Q1. But then the social marginal benefit here is going to be the difference between the private marginal benefit and then the marginal damage, the damage that you are causing the third party. I don't want to smoke, but because you are smoking, I'm also engaging in secondhand smoking. So the actual benefit of the cigarette to the entire society is going to be lower than what the person smoking is enjoying. So this red one, this red demand curve is the social marginal benefit, which is PMB minus MD. So the distance between the two measures the marginal damage of the consumption process. So here, though the competitive market will like the individual to consume Q1, the society wants you to consume only Q2, so that there will be a reduction in the cost that you are causing the society. Okay. So what do we see here? When we have negative consumption externality 2, we have overconsumption. Okay, they overconsume. Okay, they try to overconsume. Under production, we saw that the firms will try to overproduce, but under negative consumption externality, they tend towards to overconsume. We don't want you to consume more, but that is what the market is allowing you to do. But then, from the perspective of the entire society, we like you to consume less. Okay, so this is the graphical analysis for negative consumption externality. All right, this is just like an application, an example, a practical example of externality. If you take our roads, the damage to the road is normally caused by the weight of the cars that are using the roads. And those sports utility vehicles are the vehicles that are mostly heavy. Okay, so as they are using the road, we want to look at some of the negative externalities that they cause. Okay, so you know that when you are driving the car, you are consuming it. Okay, it's consumption. So the consumption of those cars, how does the consumption of those cars cause negative externalities? One is the environmental externality. You see, they use fuel, so the fumes that they emit is something that harms the entire environment. That is one negative externality. The wear and tear of the road. Okay, because the car is heavy, it puts pressure on the road. That is another issue. And then safety externalities. Because those cars are big and heavy, those who use them feel more safe. Okay, it's more comfortable. But then it is a threat to those who are using the other smaller cars. So those in those smaller cars, we see it as a negative externality. So this is just an example. So it's possible that just one process, just one economic process might be causing more than one form of externality, like the example that we have here. Now, we said we don't only have negative externalities, we also have positive externalities. So what is a positive production externality? We have this when the production process of a firm increases the well-being of others, but then the firm that is causing this increase in well-being is not compensated. That person is not compensated. So I am doing something, I am producing something, people are benefiting. Can you guys see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry about the network. I was talking about positive production and externality, and I said when the production process of a firm increases the welfare or the well-being of a third party without the firm being compensated for. So this is a perfect example. Those who produce honey, when they allow their bees to move about, they help in pollinating the other farmers that engage in crop production. Okay, but those crop farmers do not compensate the honey producers. Okay, you see that there's a perfect example of positive externality. People are enjoying what they are not paying for. Okay. And then we also have consumption externality. When you are consuming and then your consumption process is increasing the well-being of another person, and that person is not paying you. Like the beautiful garden example, you have a very nice garden in front of us. People are just enjoying the garden without paying for the scenery. That is another form of positive externality. So let's look at the graphical analysis. This one they just did it for production. I guess you can do it for consumption. It works in opposite direction to the negative externalities. So to the competitive market, we have equilibrium when private marginal benefits, the demand curve is equal to private marginal cost, the supply curve. So to this firm, the person would have wanted to produce K1, okay, to produce K1. But here, now you are producing, you are incurring a cost as your private marginal cost, but then people are also benefiting. Okay, people also benefiting. So to the entire society, if your cost is 20 and people are benefiting 5, then your cost is just 20 minus 5, which is what? 15. The marginal benefit that the others are enjoying is offsetting part of your marginal cost. As I said earlier, this one too we can rather cause a change in the demand. Instead of reducing our cost, we can increase our benefit. We'll still have the same effect. So we can just increase the demand curve, and that one too should give us the same effect. Okay. So here we are subtracting the benefits from the private cost. So to the entire society, the cost that we are facing is not as high as what the hello.
Yeah, please, I'm not seeing the screen. Okay.
Please, the others, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see. I can see.
Amma, I think it's your network. Yeah. Can you log out and then log in again? Okay, so as I was saying, at point A, that would have been the competitive equilibrium, but to the entire society, the cost is lower than what the private firm is incurring, because part is being taken away because of the benefit that the other people are enjoying. So this is going to be the new equilibrium. So because people are having a positive spillover effect, the society would have wanted the firm to produce more, to produce a Q2, but the firm is producing K1. You see, so efficiently, from the perspective of the society, we should produce Q2, but they are producing Q1. That is why we are calling this a market failure. You are not efficiently allocating the resources. So when an economic activity has a positive externality, if it's production, they tend to underproduce. You see how the human nature is. You see, it's you. Let's just think about ourselves. You see, at times someone will be doing something. As soon as the person realizes other people are benefiting from it, then he will try to either stop or reduce whatever it is he or she is doing. That's how we are. You see how selfish we are. And so, but then if you feel like, oh, you enjoy it, but the others, it is harming other people, you don't even care. So under negative externality, they produce more, they overproduce, but under positive externality, they underproduce. You see how it is. So that's how we do the graphical analysis. Please, in your free time, try it for positive consumption externality. Okay, try it. Send it to me. Let me go to the phone in case there's an issue. Then we rectify it. All right. So as I said, under the free market system, under competitive conditions, we have equilibrium when private marginal benefit is equal to private marginal cost. But to the society, it's not like that. We have efficient allocation when social marginal benefit is equal to social marginal cost. So this is the reason why we are saying that externality is a source of market failure, because what will happen in the free market isn't what the society will deem as optimal. Okay. So this is what I said. The negative ones will lead to if it's production, it will lead to overproduction. If it's consumption, it will lead to overconsumption. But the positive ones will lead to underproduction and then underconsumption for production process and consumption process respectively. So those are the effects. Okay, those are the effects. Now, if you have a question, okay, if you want to do the graphical analysis, this is what you have to do. You need to actually understand what is happening, what is